Who is Dominic Ongwen?
Dominic Ongwen was a brigade commander of the Senior Brigade of the Lord's Resistance Army. He was accused of 70 counts of crimes against humanity and war crimes. On 4th of February 2021, the Trial Chamber 9 of the International Criminal Court declared Dominic Ongwen guilty of 61 crimes characterized as war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Uganda between the 1st of July 2002 and the 31st of December 2005.
What did the judges decide?
ICC Trial Chamber 9, composed of Judge Bertram Schmidt, presiding judge, Judge Peter Kovac, and Judge Raul Kanu Pangalangan, found beyond any reasonable doubt that Mr. Ongwen is guilty of the following 61 crimes: attacks against the civilian population as such, murder, attempted murder, torture, enslavement, outrages upon personal dignity, pillaging, destruction of property, and persecution, committed in the context of the 4 specific attacks on the internally displaced persons camps, also called IDP camps, in Pajule on the 10th of October 2003, Odek on the 29th of April 2004, Lukodi on or about 19th of May 2004, and Abok on 8th of June 2004. Also, sexual and gender-based crimes, namely forced marriage, torture, rape, sexual slavery, enslavement, forced pregnancy, and outrages upon personal dignity, he committed against 7 women whose names and individual stories are specified in the judgment and who were abducted and placed into his household. Also, a number of further sexual and gender-based crimes he committed against girls and women within the Senior Brigade, namely forced marriage, torture, rape, sexual slavery, and enslavement. And finally, the crime of conscripting children under the age of 15 into the Senior Brigade and using them to participate actively in hostilities. The Chamber declared Mr. Ongwen not guilty of the other charges. The Chamber found that these crimes were committed in the context of the armed rebellion of the Lord's Resistance Army against the government of Uganda. The LRA, including Dominic Ongwen, perceived as associated with the government of Uganda and thus as the enemy, the civilians living in Northern Uganda. This concerned in particular those who lived in government-established IDP camps.
On which basis did the Chamber conclude that Mr. Ongwen is guilty?
The Chamber considered the applicable law and analyzed the evidence submitted and discussed before it at trial. Over the course of 234 hearings, the Office of the ICC Prosecutor, Madam Fadi Bensouda, presented a total of 109 witnesses and experts. The defense team, led by Crispus Ayena Odongo, presented a total of 63 witnesses and experts. And 7 witnesses and experts were called by the legal representative of the victims participating in these proceedings. The judges ensured the respect of the rights guaranteed by the Rome Statute to each of the parties, including the right to question the witnesses.
Is the verdict final, and what will be the next steps?
Following this verdict, the Chamber will receive submissions of the parties and participants on the appropriate sentence to be imposed on Dominic Ongwen. A decision on the timeline of the proceedings leading to the imposition of the sentence has also been issued by the Chamber. The prosecution and the defense may appeal the judgment and/or the decision on sentencing before the ICC's appeals chamber. Furthermore, a phase dedicated to the reparations for the victims will be opened.
Was the abduction of Mr. Ongwen by the LRA when he was a child considered by the judges in deciding the verdict?
The Chamber found that Dominic Ongwen committed these crimes as a fully responsible adult and as a commander of the LRA in his mid to late 20s. Furthermore, the Chamber did not find evidence that supported the claim he suffered from any mental disease or disorder during the period relevant to the charges, or that he committed these crimes under duress or under any threats. The judges noted that Dominic Ongwen himself was abducted in 1987 at the age of around 9 by the LRA. They are aware that he experienced much suffering in his childhood and youth. The Chamber might have to evaluate this in a later context.
What sentence may be pronounced against Mr. Ongwen?
The sentence will be pronounced by the judges in due course after having received submissions from parties and participants on this matter. The judges may impose in a separate decision a prison sentence to which a fine or forfeiture of the proceeds, property, and assets derived directly or indirectly from the crime committed may be added. The maximum sentence is 30 years. However, when justified by the extreme gravity of the crime and the individual circumstances of the convicted person, the court may impose a term of life imprisonment. There is no death penalty at the ICC.
In case of appeal, can victims participate in this appeal?
The victims' lawyers do not have the right to appeal a conviction or acquittal decision, but will be able to present the views and concerns of the victims before the appeals judges. Should there be an appeal, the appeals chamber would then decide whether more possible victims would be then allowed to participate in the appeals proceedings. Depending on this eventual decision, additional activities will then be planned to reach out to these victims, to provide them with information and facilitate their participation should they decide to exercise their rights at that stage.
How did the International Criminal Court come to Uganda?
The government of Uganda ratified the Rome Statute of the ICC in June 2002, making it a member of a permanent institution that was established to investigate and prosecute the perpetrators of the most heinous crimes. The ICC does not replace national judicial systems, but it complements them, because the courts at the national level should be the first to deal with cases of serious violations. When national systems are unable or unwilling to genuinely investigate and prosecute such crimes, the ICC comes into play as a court of last resort. In 2004, the government of Uganda referred the situation on its territory since the 1st of July 2002 to the ICC. Since then, the ICC Office of the Prosecutor has investigated alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in the context of an armed conflict, predominantly between the Lord's Resistance Army and the national authorities, and mainly in northern Uganda. In 2005, a pretrial chamber issued arrest warrants for war crimes and crimes against humanity against 5 top LRA commanders: Joseph Kony, Vincent Otti, Okot Odhiambo, Raska Lukuya, and Dominic Ongwen. Raska Lukuya and Okot Odhiambo have both been confirmed dead, and the ICC judges have terminated proceedings against them. Vincent Otti and Joseph Kony remain at large.